right. You said that was only one of the reasons they gave. They had, what, 12
Yes.
more? There were 13 reasons. And I do want to talk about those. Another one was what soft landings preceding recessions. And what role does that play in Rosenberg's recession prediction?
Well, I ran this one. The the saw is that all recessions come after soft landings, and a soft landing would be that you have less inflation, but you don't give up anything in jobs, and that's exactly where we are right now. The jobs are up, inflation is moderating, coming down. That's very rare. It's very difficult. Of course, the Fed is, I think, taking some credit for that, or people are giving the Fed some credit for it because they've stopped raising rates, but they haven't started cutting them yet. So we're in this
Mhm.
kind of honeymoon period. So Rosenberg said that every recession comes right after a soft landing. So I ran this idea past Jason Furman, who was the head economist in the Obama administration, and he's not predicting a recession. He thinks that the economy will expand in 2024, and he said, you know what? It's true, but if you look back and there is a recession, it won't be a soft landing anymore. Which he said it would be a hard landing, and there was some truth to that. I think he was just trying to make fun of the fact that we just, if something comes after something else, we think it's a cause. That the first thing is a cause of the second thing. I think there's a Latin expression for that. That just because something comes after it in time doesn't mean
Mhm.
doesn't mean that it caused it. It just came after it in time. I will tell you about another thing that all the economists talk about, that the civilians on the street, they couldn't care less about it. It's called the inverted yield curve. Now, you've heard of
Mhm.
the inverted yield curve, and I've heard of the inverted yield curve, but most people have no idea what that is. What that is you take two bonds, two U.S. government bonds. One is a 2 year, which means that you buy it and it's a 2 year maturity. You get paid off in 2 years. The other is the 10 year, and logically, the debt that lasts longer, you should get paid more for it because you're putting
Mhm.
your money at risk for longer. But in an inverted yield curve, the 2 year is actually throwing off more money than the 10 year, which is
Mhm.
against all laws of gravity and nature. And I say in the article, it's an indicator that the Detroit Lions will win a playoff game. It's really kind of, it makes everything weird. And it could result in banks not lending a lot because their cost of lending is greater than what they're getting back from the loans. And when banks don't lend, it slows down the economy. So there's this big fear about the inverted yield curve. And
Mhm.
we have had an inverted yield curve, I think, since July 2022, which, if it persists into March, will be the longest time we've ever had an inverted yield curve. Since they were painting on rock on the sides of caves. I mean, right? Since
Okay.
they started measuring such things, but
Mhm.
and the last six recessions have been predicted by the yield curve, the inverted yield curve. So every
Wow.
single time we've had a recession in the last six times we've had recessions going back to 1980,
Mhm.
81, you've had the inverted yield curve preceded it. But this time we haven't yet. So what the bears are saying is it's going to come, and what the bulls are saying is, gee, I don't know what's going on, but we've gone 22 months. What is it? Since June or July 2022,
Mhm.
which is a lot of months without having a recession coming after the inverted yield curve. Please forgive me for rattling on and on and
No,
on
no,
about the
no.
inverted yield curve.